Hi and welcome to the fifth lesson in indices, all about indice rule number 5. So let's start this time with a little interesting fact about indices. So we know that 1000 can be worked out by doing 10 times 10 times 10. Or if we want to write it in indice form, that would be 10 to the power of 3. So let's take each of these numbers and divide them by 10. So that's going to give us 100 and 10 times 10, which is the same as 10 squared. If we divide by 10 once again, we end up with 10, 10 and 10 to the power 1. So let's start from the other end this time. Let's say we have to divide 10 to the power 1 by 10. Well, if we follow the pattern that's there, 10 to the 3, 10 to the 2, 10 to the 1, it works out that if we divide the next one by 10, we're going to end up with 10 to the 0. If we go to the other side and we take the pattern there, all we've done is we've removed the 0 every time we've divided by 10. So this time, 10 divided by 10, removing the 0, gives us the answer 1. So now we know that any number to the power of 0 has to be 1. And we've just proved that by using the example of 10 to the power above. Or we could say that 1 is the answer to any power to the power 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that in a wee second, and we're going to look at it in terms of indice rule number 5, which tells us that if we have 1 over any power, then simply we could rewrite that as the same power but with a negative indice this time. And so here are some examples of taking it from that fractional form and turning it into indice form. So let's say we've got 1 over x to the 4. Well, we've just seen that 1 can be written as x to the power 0. So let's do that. And now we also know from indice rule number 2 that if you are dividing two indices, then you subtract the powers. So x to the power 0 divided by x to the power 4 is the same as x to the 0 minus 4. Well, nothing take away 4 we know gives us negative 4. So we now know that 1 over x to the 4 gives us the answer x to the negative 4. And that confirms what we see in indice rule number 5. So if we try that with 1 over b to the 3, then we can do the exact same thing shorthand now and just move the b to the 3 up to the top, remembering to make the power negative. Same for 1 over h to the 5, we move h to the 5 up to the top on its own, but this time remembering to make the 5 into a negative 5. Now a small problem does arise if it's a number up the top. So if we have something like 3 divided by c squared, we need to think, how can we use 3 in some way that's going to give us a similar answer? Well, we know that 3 times 1 gives us 3, and we know that 1 is the answer to any power to 0. So what we can do is we can think of 3 times 1 as being 3 times c to the power 0. Now what that allows us to do is it allows us to look at the powers in terms of indice rule number 2 once again, and that gives us that 3c of 0 take away 2, and we know that nothing take away 2 gives us negative 2. So once again, what we can see here is that no matter if you've got a number other than 1 up the top, you're still moving the power from the bottom up to the top, and you're making it negative as you did before. So something like 4 divided by d to the 7 becomes 4d to the negative 7. It's only the d to the 7 that moves, and when it does, it becomes negative of what it used to be. Similarly for 17e to the 6, we move the e to the 6 up to the top to join the 17, as long as we remember to make the sign negative. So as you've done before, here are some questions. Pause the movie, try these for yourself. We'll see how you go on in a second. Okay, let's look at some answers here. So the first one, we're moving b to the 4 up to the top and making it negative. It's going to give us the answer b to the negative 4. Next, we're moving c to the 3 up to the top and making the power negative, so we're going to get c to the power negative 3. Similarly for question 3, e to the 5 comes to the top and becomes negative, resulting in e to the negative 5. And in number 4, f to the 7 goes to the top and becomes negative, and that one becomes f to the negative 7. Now questions 5, 6 and 7, we don't have 1s up the top, so we've got to be careful here. We can only move the powers. So the first one, we take the d squared, move it to the top, and it becomes negative, so we get 3d to the negative 2. The next one, the 12, stays where it is, but j to the 3 joins it, and it becomes negative, so we get 12j to the negative 3. Question number 7, the y to the 8 moves to the top, and we get 9y to the negative 8. And the last one, p to 5 moves to the top, and we end up with 4p to the negative 5. So I hope you can see there from indice rule number 5 that all we really need to do is remember that if we are moving an indice from the bottom of a fraction up to the top, we must change the sign from positive to negative. So let's take a look at Indice rule in reverse. So how if we have an Indice form and we want to turn it back into a fraction? So let's say we've got a to the negative 2, then what we just need to remember is if we put it back where it belongs, we have to make sure we turn it back into being a positive Indice. So a to the negative 2, when it goes back down the bottom where it originated, it becomes a to the positive 2. P to the negative 6, if it goes back down to the bottom of our fraction, we've got to remember make it positive once again. R to the negative 11, put it back down the bottom, becomes R to the positive 11. If we've got a number in front of it, now we've got to remember that the numbers didn't move in the first place, it was only the powers that moved, so in this case the 7 stays at the top, we move the D to the 3 down to the bottom and make it positive. Next one, 9e to the negative 7, the 9 stays at the top, and we move the e to the 7 down the bottom and make it positive again. And then 3t to the negative 5, we keep the 3 up the top and we move the t to the negative 5 down the bottom, making it positive. So once again, here are some to try, and this time you're going to use Indice rule in reverse to work out what your answers are. So pause the tape and we'll get the answers back to you in a moment. Okay, number 1. So we've got d to the negative 3. We know that's the number 1 at the front, but we don't usually write it in. So all we're doing is moving that down the bottom and making it positive. So we get 1 over d3. Next one, we've got f to the negative 2. So we move that down to the bottom, we have to make it positive. So I get 1 over f squared. H to the negative 6. If I take that and move it down to the bottom, then that's going to give me a 1 up the top and an h to the positive 6 down the bottom. And then the last one, t to the negative 1. That's just going to give me a 1 up the top and a t to the power 1 down the bottom. Now sometimes we just miss out that 1 in the bottom and we just write it as 1 over t. Question number 5, we've got a 3 in front of it this time. So the 3 is going to have to stay where it is, and it's only the z to the negative 8 that's allowed to move. If it moves down the bottom, then it becomes z to the positive 8. Next one, the 9 is going to have to stay in the top, but the L to the negative 5 can jump down to the bottom as long as we remember to change its sign to a positive. Next one, we have 12e to the negative 7. So if we drop the e to the 7 down to the bottom, it becomes e to the positive 7 again, and we end up with 12 divided by e to the 7. And lastly, the 5 is already down the bottom, so this time if we're moving the k to the negative 3 down to the bottom, it's going to join it. So we're going to have a 1 up the top, and we're going to have 5k cubed down the bottom. Okay, hope this has been helpful, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.